As 2026 arrived, countries around the world celebrated. China did the opposite. Authorities banned public gatherings nationwide and deployed heavy police presence. So multiple cities like Xi'an, Tianjin, Shanghai canceled New Year's Eve events entirely. Light shows were shut down, countdowns canceled, fireworks banned. One observer put it perfectly. He said, Shanghai, Nanjing, Wuhan, symbolic cities, all staged a kind of collective silence. The more police there were, the more people wanted to come out. This tug of war over public space hides a powerful political code. And the code is simple. The regime fears crowds. It fears its own people because the regime knows the temperature was already very high. So now let me give you a brief rundown of protests that took place in 2025 that involved hundreds, if not thousands of people confronting public security. So the most explosive case occurred in July. It was in Jiangyu, Sichuan. A 14-year-old girl was brutally bullied and beaten by classmates whose parents were local officials. Authorities failed to respond, and public anger exploded. Thousands of people gathered in front of the city government. And then in late October, a state-owned enterprise in Hainan illegally cut down farmers' betel nut trees, triggering clashes between the villagers and the police. This was in Hainan. And then this one was in November, mid-November. This one was in Guangxi. Local governments forcibly demolished a folk temple and an ancestral hall, and physical confrontation followed. And then also in November, Guizhou pushed a mandatory grave digging and cremation policy. Villagers, they shouted back. They say, if the Communist Party wants to dig up our ancestors' graves, go dig up Xi Jinping's family graves first. That's a bold statement in China. And then in early December, workers at a factory, it's called Yili Shen Technology Company in Shenzhen, went on strike over unpaid wages. The strike escalated into large-scale clashes with police. And then on December 5th, the provincial government backed Zhejiang Financial Assets Exchange Center, Zhejiang Zhongxin. Hundreds of investors protested outside the provincial government because this company is 40% owned by local government, and they went belly up, and people's savings and investments disappeared. And then later in December, food delivery riders protested in Changsha, Hunan, and also Zigong, Sichuan, in both places. The reason was that they were being blocked by property management from entering residential areas and shopping districts. These food delivery guys, they gather very quickly. They're on these platforms, and so once one sends out a message, thousands of delivery workers got it, and they rushed over to the area to join the protest. So the situation erupted very quickly before the police could even respond. So it happened within a week in Changsha, Hunan, and also Zigong, Sichuan. So this is a formidable force of young people. So according to China Dissent Monitor run by Freedom House, 1,392 protests were recorded in the third quarter of 2025 alone. That's a 45% increase year over year, and the sixth consecutive quarter of growth. Even more striking, in the first 11 months of 2025, rural protests surged by 70%. Now, the Chinese authorities are especially alarmed by one group, migrant workers returning to rural areas. So now let me talk about why the CCP is so concerned with migrant workers, and they're blocking them from returning home. So in November, the CCP took a rare and revealing step. It openly ordered local governments to prevent large numbers of migrant workers from returning to and remaining in rural areas. Under Xi Jinping's rule, the economic downturn has hit two groups especially hard. One is the 300 million, well, that's the official number. I don't know if it's still 300 million, but officially 300 million migrant workers who work in urban areas, and also college grads. As mass unemployment spreads, public anger is rising. Now, for more than 2 decades, migrant workers survived by working in cities. Now, many are being pushed back to rural areas, but their land is gone. They've lost the last foundation that once allowed them to survive there. If large numbers of migrant workers become stranded in the countryside, China risks creating a massive floating population of displaced people, and that will pose a serious threat to regime stability. And the CCP understands this risk very well. Its surveillance and control system is concentrated in large and mid-sized cities. In vast rural areas, state control is very weak. At the same time, local governments are nearing bankruptcies. So in many counties, civil servants' wages are delayed or unpaid. Bonuses have been cut. But by the way, Chinese bonuses are not really bonuses. They're part of the basic pay. So people, sometimes their base pay is very low. People, bonus is just part of their compensation. So some grassroots police officers no longer have stable incomes. As a result, large parts of rural China are turning into power vacuums. If migrant workers remain in these areas in large numbers, the system may lose control entirely. Central authorities know that once this pressure is released into the countryside, things can spiral very quickly. So that's why they're preventing migrant workers from returning to the countryside. After Beijing's September 3rd military parade and the fourth plenum, anti-CCP slogans appeared on Chinese streets, openly calling for Xi Jinping and the Communist Party to step down. On live stream platforms and social media, netizens mocked the CCP, sometimes openly, sometimes through sarcasm or satirical work, pushing against China's digital censorship wall. Now, the death of entertainer Alan Yu or Yu Monglong had a subtle but dramatic political impact, triggering renewed waves of people withdrawing from the CCP. So taken together, grassroots resistance in China in 2025 have accelerated. It started in the second half of 2025, and it really peaked in the fourth quarter. And then they show several defining characteristics. First is both the number and geographical spread of protests are expanding, from cities to villages, from online spaces to real life, and from economic disputes to broader social issues. So unrest is rising on all fronts. Second, protests are driven not just by anger, it's by a deep despair. People are not afraid of hardship. What they fear is having no hope. This is particularly true with the Chinese. The Chinese people can endure hardship, but when they feel like they have no hope, that's the point where they realize they need to do something. And it's not just unemployed migrant workers, college grads with no jobs, demoralized soldiers, independent thinking intellectuals, and private entrepreneurs. They're all trapped in the state of hopelessness. And the third is grassroots resistance is now becoming increasingly political and more sharply focused on the regime and Xi Jinping. And they're naming names now. And they can erupt from everyday social conflicts. And the threshold for ignition is very low. So when I say I'll give you one example that is very striking, in my opinion. A recent internal report from China's Ministry of Public Security revealed that a document signed by a group calling itself a National Reclamation Party or National Restoration Party, 富国党, was circulating nationwide. So it sounds like this party is a national organization. This National Reclamation Party is a national organization, and its Beijing Tianjin Special Committee sent out an explicit message. And so this is what it says. It says, during the 2026 Lunar New Year, which is mid-February, it called for people to, 1, seize corrupt officials' illicit wealth, 2, relieve public suffering, and 3, gather momentum for a popular uprising. The document specifically appealed to migrant workers returning home and unemployed college grads, the two groups of people that the CCP fears the most. The MSS internal report was clearly intended as a warning to local authorities. They need to do everything they can to prevent such activities during the holiday period. So it was shocking. Yeah, Chinese people are forming their political parties and are getting organized. So when pressures converge, right, under authoritarian rules, 3 risks are always discussed: popular uprisings, military mutinies, and political coup. Right now, popular uprising is the most visible risk, but large-scale upheaval rarely arrives in only one form. Legal law expert Professor Yuan Hongbin, he sent out a warning message. He said, popular uprising, military mutiny, and political coup are all accumulating energy at the same time. When the explosion comes, these forces may interact, creating a major event that overturns CCP's rule.